This is Salesforce Simplified, the podcast from Victoriam Solutions. Here's your host, Mike Boyle.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Hey, guess what? Tom's here. That's right. Today's subject on the Salesforce Simplified podcast is MuleSoft Composer for Salesforce, which was introduced earlier this year. And there's no one better suited to talk about that subject than Advic's own MuleSoft Practice Director, Tom Minton. Hello, Tom.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
It's great to have you with us. So let's talk about this MuleSoft Composer for Salesforce. Tell me about it, tell me what it is, and tell me what it enables folks to do.
Sure. So the main advantage to MuleSoft Composer for Salesforce is that it allows Salesforce admins the ability to create integrations with external systems just really with no code, just clicks. Is something that is pushed out to their particular organization. And as an admin, they have a screen and they have a variety of connectors they can connect to without having to involve anyone deeper in the IT department, without having to have a huge, vast knowledge of MuleSoft coding ability, and just really to get sort of the results they need, the information they need in much quicker, much more efficient way.
So why, in your opinion, did MuleSoft create Composer when they already had a great product in AnyPoint?
They do have a very number one integration platform in their AnyPoint platform. However, there's a lot of businesses, especially some of your medium and emerging businesses, that are, there's sort of a sticker shock. I'm not going to say that it's the most expensive option, but it certainly is an investment that you make kind of for the long game. And you see your savings and your efficiencies down the road. So that particular play isn't always in the budget. And this was it was a way to offer, I don't want to say a lighter version, but certainly a more compact version that allows companies that you don't have to worry about some of the overhead or configuration of any environments or some of the things that come along with MuleSoft. And your existing Salesforce administrators are able to pick up that tool and use it for very, very little ramp up.
So before we get into some of the things that MuleSoft Composer can do on its own, can we talk a little bit more about the difference between MuleSoft Composer for Salesforce and MuleSoft AnyPoint's platform?
Yeah, sure. So AnyPoint platform is the full-blown tool. It allows you, through their development plane, which is known as AnyPoint Studio, to develop fully customizable integrations that have hundreds of connectors. You can connect to just about anything in the world with MuleSoft, which makes it great. But most IT departments in the world, IT before the last, say, 10 to 15 years was always a cost. It was always just the cost of doing business. You had to have the IT department. We're moving into a world and a thought in business leadership where IT is now actually could be a source of revenue. Sort of cloud first. There's a lot more online. There's a lot more, app sort of needs where you're making money in your IT department. So the full platform is wonderful for that. It allows full customizations. You can do some pretty tricky transformations and things like that. Now, Composer, you are able to connect to many different, I think as of today, there's 14 different connectors you can use into 14 different systems. However, you're limited to those. In the full version, if you really needed to get to something and there wasn't a pre-made connector available on AnyPoint Exchange, you could usually use some other connector like a database connector and get to the back end, or if that particular system has an API, you can tie into it through that way. Composer, you're kind of limited to what they have. However, they've taken the most common uses and elements of what business is going to need and put them into Composer. So their tagline is clicks, not code. And that's really the big difference is you use what you have with Composer. There's not a lot of customization that you can do, whereas the full-blown MuleSoft product, the sky's the limit on that.
All right, let's talk about some of the things that MuleSoft Composer can do. How does it help automate a business's inventory process, for example?
Well, so I mentioned that there was 14 connectors that are available, one of which you've got Workday, you've got ServiceNow. You can set up in an integration, say you had your sales team is out in the field, they can use the Salesforce app. Well, they need to see if there's, enough widgets to sell this customer. And you can set up an integration where they can go see, how many items there are. You can also set up, for example, say, hey, there's a Slack notification that goes out to the sales team or to procurement when there's X number of widgets left. We need to, you can automate that process, and it streamlines it, excuse me. And you don't have to sit and wait. You don't have that, oh my gosh, I sold 10 and we only have 8 sort of situation. And so it just results in a better customer experience.
Can you talk a little bit about how MuleSoft Composer helps mitigate sales forecast risk?
I mentioned the NetSuite integration. You can tie into that. There's also Tableau. There's a Tableau connector. So you can pull that data into some reporting and some charting, and see historical data, and use it in such a way that you can kind of predict what's going to happen next month, next quarter, next year, based on previous performance. And that data can come, I mentioned NetSuite, I mentioned Workday, but it can come from something as simple as Google Sheets. If you have one of the most abused business softwares out there is Excel. Everybody uses Excel, probably in ways that it shouldn't be used. But let's say you have a bunch of data that you need to chart on something. You can save that Excel as a Google Sheet. You can then integrate that Google Sheet to Salesforce or to Tableau or to something like that, and actually map that data out in a much more usable and visual way. So that's one of the best benefits of that particular connector.
It's my understanding, Tom, that MuleSoft Composer synchronizes with multiple Salesforce orgs. Mm-hmm. Talk about how that can be beneficial to a company.
Well, okay, so you've got your widget company, you're trucking along, and you're doing so well that maybe one of your competitors, you come together, you acquire someone else that has their own Salesforce org. You're able to actually integrate those two orgs using Composer with the Salesforce connector on each end and pass information back and forth that way. So now, instead of having to swivel from one system to the other or log out and log into another, you can synchronize those orgs using that Composer flow set up by your administrator and keep right on going. It really, that's one of the main use cases that we have, in the practice with our full-blown MuleSoft, the AnyPoint platform, is getting multiple data sources into one. That's the whole idea of MuleSoft. And a lot of times it will come from acquisitions. They have their own set of data, their own set of tables or whatnot, and putting together. This is just a way that it can be done quickly. You have a Salesforce to Salesforce kind of way with very little, with literally clicks.
So in what ways could sales teams streamline operations with MuleSoft Composer? And if you could, talk about some of the richer sales insights that they'd be able to unlock.
You could have inventory information. You can view the throughput. You can handle your orders, and you can do so in such a way that there's an automative air to it that you can tie into Slack. Slack is one of the, it's really fast becoming one of the major business tools for notifications, for communications. So you're able to send information out about a new opportunity via Slack message. And in that Slack message, it could have a link back to the Salesforce opportunity for whether your salespeople are in-house or on the road. Some of the other available connectors there's a connector for a service called Stripe, which is a cash recon e-commerce tool. There's Xero, which is Xero. That's accounting. You can get the information into the systems that it needs without having to type it, I guess is a way to put it. And so it streamlines everything. I mean, less keyboard time equals more time out there, making sales.
Maybe just go a little bit deeper into that. It comes, MuleSoft Composer, with a host of pre-built connectors to integrate Salesforce tools such as Slack, and we talked about Tableau, Workday, Google Sheets. The benefits of those integrations for sales operations and team collaboration. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
You're able to integrate, so you've got multiple sources of customer information, let's say. You pull out information into one contact or account record within Salesforce. Some of the other connectors available are Twilio. You can use that for your sales team. If you have a service-based business, there's a ServiceNow. You can track your calls. And the best part is all of these, these are just the first wave. They're coming out every 3 to 6 months with a new set. I believe the last 6 that they created, they dropped about a month ago. So it's a growing tool set that, again, doesn't take a lot, if any, special training, special skills. You're not, I can tell you that skilled MuleSoft developers are not easy to come by. So this is a way that you can mitigate some of those HR and staffing issues with your already existing team of Salesforce administrators. And get the, I don't want to say a lighter version, but get what you're very likely going to need from MuleSoft in a much more efficient package.
Well, it kind of leads me, Tom, into how I wanted to wrap things up today, to just get your final thoughts about three things: Composer's ease of use, its flexibility, and its scalability. How would you wrap all those three things into one big bow?
Well, I would say, going back to the clicks not code tagline that they have, it just makes integration easier. It makes integration something that is something you need a team for. It's something that your staff can already do. So the ease of use, it's drag and drop. It's you say, hey, this is this key for this. This is the key for this. And all of a sudden the systems are not talking to each other. So they've made that probably one of the, I believe when they were designing it, they had that idea in mind of, hey, can the Salesforce admin super user type resource actually make this happen? And I believe they've hit a home run with that. As far as flexibility, it's really, at this point, there's some limitations into what you can connect to. It covers almost all of the common business software, but the flexibility comes in that as users say, hey, I need to be able to connect to X, there might be next drop, there might be an SAP connector, or there might be, a true SQL connector, something where you can get into other systems you can't currently get to now. MuleSoft's very big on wanting to connect everything. So that's a big driver in their innovation. So I see the best example of flexibility just being the array of options you have, and even more on the way. And then scalability is, let's say you are a Composer user and you found that you're able to do the vast majority of your integration work through that, but you need a little more. You need some custom transformations done, or you need to get to an AS400, and the connector's not available yet, or some sort of in-house Oracle database, something like that. Well, then you have that scalability to then talk to MuleSoft. Just like, hey, can we maybe move on to the Enterprise Edition, the AnyPoint platform? And I believe, I would say, don't quote me on that, but you're recording me. I'm sure that there is going to be some sort of way to connect your Composer integrations to integrations within the AnyPoint platform, but I haven't seen that yet. But it would really surprise me if that isn't at least on somebody's radar. So that kind of gives you the scalability. You can start small with Composer. You can kind of get into the MuleSoft ecosystem and then really see how it benefits you, how it grows your business, how it just makes things easier.
He's Tom Minton. He's Advic's MuleSoft practice director. And Tom, I want to thank you for joining us today and taking us under the hood of this animal called MuleSoft's Composer for Salesforce. And I know we'll have you back again. There's a plethora of MuleSoft topics that we can have you back for, so we look forward to that. Thanks again, Tom. And if you would like to learn more about a MuleSoft or Salesforce solution for your business, you visit our website. It's advic.com, advic.com. Oh, and we just got some big news about this podcast. In addition to the usual podcast platforms you get us on, you can now listen to us on Facebook from the podcast tab on your mobile device's app, both iOS and Android. Can't listen to it on the desktop version of Facebook yet. We're told that they're working on that. So check us out on your Facebook app when you have the opportunity. I'm Mike Boyle from Victoriam Solutions. I want to thank you for joining us for our latest edition of Salesforce Simplified, which, again, you can follow on all the podcast platforms out there. Our next episode is just around the corner.
You've been listening to Salesforce Simplified, the podcast from Victoriam Solutions.